Welcome back to my channel. In the Age of Pandemic series, I try to make some sense of a world where unseen microbes are defining and dictating everything. And one of the things I mention is the new normal. Today, I want to talk about how the paths to God as we previously knew them are being adapted in some ways to the pandemic. We are seeing that public health interventions to contain COVID-19 are being given priority over religious gatherings all over the world. Given the state of affairs, people are wondering, why is this happening to us and where is God in a pandemic? Will a new kind of spirituality take shape? God and man and God. The connection between them is defined in countless abstractions, and it has been a source of solace and inspiration ever since we lived in caves. But God is also a source of negative energy. It is said that more crimes have been committed and more people have been killed in the name of God than anything else.
The age of the Crusades had begun. The Pope proclaimed a new holy war against Islam for control of the most hallowed site in the Christian cosmos, the sacred city of Jerusalem.
In July 1941, Hermann Göring, Hitler's second-in-command, authorized all necessary preparations for the final solution of the Jewish question in the European territory under German control. As German military forces advanced, mobile killing squads advanced with them. The German army, military SS, and German police units took an active part in authorized mass murders. The Germans and their accomplices rounded up the victims, drove them on foot or in trucks to a killing site, often made them remove their clothes, and shot them.
One of the great perplexes of our age is mankind's consistency with the God conviction, despite there being growing evidence against the very idea of God. There are more and more people in different parts of the world who don't believe in God, but you'll notice that the number of conformists is also growing exponentially. Science seeks to explain and eventually does explain everything that is natural. But what I think science fails to do is explain what is clearly and transparently abstract.
Most physicists are very uncertain, as they have every right to be. In fact, I would say, for physicists, that as they have the duty to be at the moment, extremely uncertain about the spatio-temporal dimensions of the original episode, the Big Bang, as it's sometimes called. We're in the very, very early stages of this inquiry. We hardly know what we don't know about the origins of the universe. We're viewing it from an unimaginable distance, not just an unimaginable distance in space. We're perched on a tiny rock in an extremely small suburb of a fairly minor galaxy, trying to look to discern our origins, but also at an unbelievable distance in time. And we claim the right to say, we can see the finger of God in this process. It's an extraordinarily arrogant assumption. It either deserves a Nobel Prize in physics, which it hasn't yet got, I notice. I don't know any physicist who believes these assumptions are necessary, or it deserves a charge of hubris.
Until January 2020, when COVID-19 hit, we lived in the Anthropocene age. It was the age in which humans dominated everything. We assumed the central role in nature and we crowned ourselves next in line to God. I am not going into whether God created this order of succession or man did. My point is this. In our supreme wisdom, we forgot that we were just a minority in our corner of the universe. The majority is made up of unseen organisms, bacteria and viruses, and they could strike whenever they wanted. So when this pandemic happened, many of us turned to God.
Different countries and different governments are addressing religious freedom concerns against the backdrop of the coronavirus pandemic in various ways. What you found in a number of Western countries already is that religious places of worship come under exactly the same guidelines as wider guidelines pertaining to gathering in large numbers. That's only been the case in the United Kingdom. as was made very evident by the relevant department, the Department of Communities and Local Government, just over the last couple of days. When it comes to other countries in other parts of the world, particularly within the Arab world, then governments have made it very clear that places of worship ought to suspend prayers within, and they justify this on public health grounds as well as on Islamic law grounds, because one of the most basic principles in Islamic law is the protection of life.
Breaking news coming in. Tirumala Tirupati board appeals to NRI devotees who are coming from overseas or for foreigners for that matter to not visit the temple for 28 days from the day that they have landed in India. TTD has issued this appeal in light of the coronavirus crisis. So precautionary measures being taken by the Tirumala Tirupati board at the moment.
Christian, Muslim, Hindu. These are just 3 of the hundreds of paths to worshipping God. And all of them, according to all reports, had the same reflex action to the coronavirus pandemic. Public health intervened. The human instinct for self-preservation moderated our previously immutable devotion to the Almighty. Now, there were some exceptions which I'll just mention, but the exceptions actually conveyed the narrative really well. For example, there was this church in South Korea. The congregations here caused an explosion in the number of COVID-19 cases in South Korea.
Now the whole world will come gathering to Shincheonji Church of Jesus.
But even they had to modify their methods of outreach. The good word is now reaching devotees electronically. And then there was this Islamic sect in Delhi in India. Here, devotees were found supremely oblivious to the threat of COVID-19, and quite a few of them ended up being super spreaders.
IIM's team has analyzed exponential impact of Tablighi Jamaat event in the national capital, and it is demonstrating how the spread has actually tripled. The study predicts that number of COVID-19 cases will increase exponentially in India to approximately 1.5 lakh cases by the first week of May 2020, and the report is analyzing 2 different scenarios.
By the way, just for the record, I do not agree with that newsreader's tone. I only want to point something out. You see, there's this standard stereotype crafted by the Western mainstream media about members of the Islamic faith. After 9/11, a whole generation grew up with our brains washed by theories of Islamophobia, like Muslim clerics are fanatics, fundamentalists utterly divorced from scientific rationale. It's now been 3 months since that particular incident in Delhi, and this stereotype is being proved wrong. Let me give you an outstanding example. The annual Hajj, which attracts millions of people from all over the world, is proposed to be suspended. By the way, this is not the first time it's happening. The Saudi Arabian government has decided to restrict the Hajj to small numbers of local devotees.
I think it's a clever idea to run a small Hajj. I'm sure the government would know who has been to hospital and who has been infected and who hasn't been, and they can make sure that everyone is tested before they embark on the Hajj.
Till date, thank God and touch wood, there has not been a single report of any religious dogma taking priority over public health during the pandemic. In previous episodes, I have talked about the bravery of doctors, nurses, and the entire medical community. I also mentioned volunteerism, that people all over the world have been helping disadvantaged people. So, what about the religious leaders, the cult leaders, and the heads of sects? Well, they have not been passive. Rather, they have cooperated fully with the health authorities to ensure that no matter what the written word is in the Quran or the Bible or whatever, the containment of COVID-19 is paramount. What does this mean in terms of the geopolitical space? Well, for me as a millennial, this means a crash of a belief system which had emerged after 9/11. Over the last nearly 2 decades that have followed, I have seen a lot of divisive rhetoric on the so-called clash of civilizations. Thousands of lives have been lost over this, but that was before the COVID-19 pandemic. We are now seeing a silver lining. After all, we have a new generation that is learning that religions and faiths are only accessories. God means something more profound than what was previously understood. A survey was conducted in the United States of America in May, at a time when 80,000 Americans had already died of COVID-19. This survey reported that 31% of Americans believe that the coronavirus pandemic is a message from God telling humanity to change the way they are living. People are perceiving the virus as a message from God that if we don't change, this misery is going to continue. This survey is an eye-opener because it reveals that somewhere deep down, many people are harboring the view that humans have not been conducting themselves righteously. There are already many signs. The summers are getting hotter, winters are getting harsher, ice is melting in the poles too quickly for comfort, economic inequality is eating away at the entrails of society. All this was not addressed by the religious doctrines. The rituals of worship were more important than serving God through good action and good deeds. However, another significant thing to emerge from this survey was that the virus has not really changed Americans' overall belief in God. 2% are saying that they believe in God today but did not before. Fewer than 1% say that they do not believe in God today but did before. I came across this article some time ago. It told me that, like in my corner in India, there were people all over the world who held the belief that the suffering, the deaths caused by the COVID-19 pandemic conveyed a higher sign. There were many things about God that we avoided frontal debate about earlier. Now, we are searching within ourselves for the rationale behind believing in the abstraction, while so much misery is consuming us. Is a new spiritualism going to emerge from this? Many of us are looking ahead at a life on the brink, with so much hardship waiting for us. Depression of the economic variety is sweeping the world on a scale not seen since the 1930s. Meanwhile, we are being warned of a global mental health crisis. In my daily interactions with people, I've hardly come across anybody who doesn't fear for their life, their family, their job, the future of their business. Many have expressed the view, quite a dangerous and destructive view, that what is the point in living like this? However weak my articulation, I think that there is a need for a God, a new God. This God should be without religious trappings. All the faiths in the present day were born in the ancient world, and religion may have served a specific purpose back then, when man lived in caves and when there were threats everywhere. God, the God belief system, with its entire retinue of religion, superstitions, social divisions, virtue streams, all this came to our rescue. But in the 21st century, we really don't need more divisions. The problems we are facing today are global in nature. The climate crisis, the economic crisis, the mental health crisis. The Bhagavad Gita, which I think is one of the greatest books of wisdom ever, tells us this. The mind can be saved from despair and doomed once it realizes that the dark side to a fact is compensated by 100 good ones. Agreeing to concede to the science of public health, perhaps our religious leaders have already taken that first step. Thank you for watching. I'll be back next week.